It's Ryan Tennis. That was an original song of Ryan's. It's on his CD. He has wonderful, wonderful music on the CD. Some of it's not appropriate for a spiritual gathering. Big bamboo, yeah. So delighted that Ryan is here for our first celebration. We have some wonderful musicians who are coming up. Reverend Retta Morgan is going to be singing next week. The week after that, Stephen Wise after Thanksgiving. Marcy Francis is here. We've got Stu Shames and Lou Doty coming up before the end of the year. So something rich and wonderful going on each week. It's just great. And you're great. You're great.
I know.
Yeah. You are great. Do you know how great you are? Ralph Waldo Emerson was talking about your genius. You have a genius. There's something in you which is an absolute genius. I've been working with the prayer of St. Francis for a while. It's the one that starts out with, "I am an instrument of God's love," or God's peace, depending on which version that you like. And being that instrument, you know, Ryan's played a lot of songs on his guitar. You give me a guitar, it's not going to sound nearly that good. I'll do something with it, I might look at it funny, but there are other instruments that I can play, and there are other ways that I can be an instrument. So what is genius? When we start talking about what is your genius, what is that unique combination that you have? Well, you've got some skills, some God-given talents. There's that phrase, God-given talents. Okay? You've got strengths and abilities. And there's a unique combination of all of those which is uniquely you. And that's what St. Francis of Assisi meant. I'm an instrument of God's peace, of God's love. A unique combination put here as an instrument to perform something, to serve some purpose. I play the didgeridoo. When I say I play the didgeridoo, I mean that I borrowed a didgeridoo and I have it in my office, and every now and again I can make a sound that's not completely obscene with it. And there are nicer didgeridoos. This one's made out of plastic. It's a piece of PVC pipe. And there are people who do more with a didgeridoo than I do. But the way that this particular didgeridoo and I are fitting together is the perfection of its path. So we have all of those talents, and we have all of those skills, and each one of us has those abilities and gifts and things that we can share. Does that mean that we have to share them, that we need to go out and say, I've got to do something, I've got to be something, I've got to accomplish something? Well, yes and no. Because we all each have our own passions, our own interests, our own concerns, and our own desires. There's those urges that we have inside of us. So the intersection of those urges and desires and passions and those yearnings to accomplish something or to do something or to be something, combined with the talents and the skills and the abilities that we have, when we get to that intersection, that's our genius. Okay? There's the person who's living in poverty all alone, who wants to be famous, wants to be the next Kim Kardashian. They have a lot of work to do to be able to take whatever combination of skills they have to make that happen. Somebody else in exactly the same situation, without any money, without anybody around or any friends, who wants to live a monastic life, who wants to be by himself so he can commune with Spirit, doesn't have to change anything. He gets to sit there and be exactly what he wants to be. So it's the yearning combined with the gifts that give us our genius. There's a reason, I think, that the infinite created all of us differently. It's so that we could all have different experiences and we could all contribute differently. So there's a dog in World War II. And in World War II, it was one of the first times that the United States government actually started recruiting dogs and training them and having them serve in the Canine Corps. And they found that the ones that really did the best were the German Shepherds and the Dobermans and the big dogs. And they could put them on guard duty and make them sniff for things. So there was this guy in the South Pacific in New Guinea who won a dog in a card game. a little Yorkie, tiny little dog. And the dog went everywhere with this guy. He was in New Guinea, and he traveled all over the place. I think he flew 30 combat missions in an airplane in the guy's backpack, and the dog was on landing craft and stuff. I think the dog has 9 combat mission, whatever they call those. The dog is actually a war hero, because the Signal Corps needed to run a telegraph wire across a taxiway in Luzon, and they were going to have to dig up the taxiway and incapacitate the base for 3 days while they dug it up and buried the wire, and then made the airfield useful again. And during that time, they'd be vulnerable to an air attack. But there was like an 8-inch culvert that went underneath the thing. It was partly filled with silt and dirt and things like this. And there was no way to get the wire through there, except the guy who owned the dog tied a string to the dog's collar, and they got the dog to walk 70 feet underground through this pipe, trailing a little string, and then they pulled the telegraph wire through. So if that dog had the idea that it needed to be the big dog, it needed to be a German Shepherd to be a war hero, if it needed to be a Doberman so that it could be fierce or something, that's not true. The Doberman couldn't do it. The German Shepherd couldn't do it. It was the unique combination of gifts that this little dog named Smokey had that made him a hero. Take a deep breath, breathe in. And now breathe out. It's pretty natural. We draw our attention to that. Keep breathing. Don't let me interrupt. I saw Michael Beckwith last weekend. He says, I listened to a recording myself. I didn't realize how often I told people to breathe. So I guess I've been telling people to breathe too. Maybe it's something that happens when we stand up here. Show of hands, does anybody know what percentage of that breath that you took was oxygen? Anybody? Howard? Anybody else? I know. Okay. It's 21%. 21% oxygen in dry air. We don't account for water vapor. Take another. That's 21% oxygen. And then you breathe out, it's still 21% oxygen. The other 78% is nitrogen, and then there's a bunch of other little tiny things in there. The only people who know that sort of thing are anesthesiologists or nurses who are administering oxygen a lot. Scuba divers, because it's kind of important, which is how I learned this stuff. Mountaineers, the people who are climbing way up on top of mountains and stuff, and pilots. So, did I catch you, or are you just one of those aficionados who knows things?
No, I had relevant training.
Okay. Take another breath. Breathe in. And realize that your genius is in being able to breathe, to take in the air, to take in the oxygen, to assimilate exactly as much oxygen as you need, to let your body do whatever it does with it, to nourish your cells, to let the carbon dioxide build up and then breathe that out. That's your genius. You don't need to know how the whole system works. You don't need to know about oxygen toxicity units. Honest to God, there's a thing called an oxygen toxicity unit. Anybody want to know about that? Take a class, not with me. Thank you, James. Yes, we'll talk later.